Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. I didn't remember until I just started saying the share this moment what wonderful condition my voice is in. So I hope you're going to be able to hear the share clearly. I'll try to make up for it by repositioning the microphone and maybe increasing the gain on the microphone a little bit. And I hope my voice holds out, but it is what it is. Okay, so it's good to be back after a long stretch of absence, and that was the run-up to Yom Tov between Yom Kippur and Sukkot. Going to have to try to make up for lost time, but right away I see that my voice is a little bit problematic, so we will do the best that we can, and I'm going to ask the Olam to please bear with me. We're continuing to learn Hilchos Netilas Yadayim. We pick up on Nun Gimel Amid Beis, Siman Kuf Samach Sif Tes. Says the Mechaber. We're about halfway down on Nun Gimel Amid Beis. Mayim Meluchim. Now, literally, the words Mayim Meluchim mean salted waters. Now, right when you see the words Mayim Meluchim, there's two ways you could really understand Mayim Meluchim. One is that we're talking about natural salt water, like the water from the Yam, ocean water, which is naturally salty. Or we could be talking about Mayim Mesukim, naturally sweet water, so fresh water that was salted. You added salt to it. Now, for the Mishnah Berurah, it's very clear that the Chavetz Chaim learned that this Mechaber is speaking about either one, whether the water is naturally salty or the water was salted. So says the Mechaber, Mayim Meluchim, salt water, Oy Sruchim, or rancid water, Oy Marim, or water that is bitter, She'ena Kelev Yachal Lishtois Mehem. And whatever the condition of this water, whether it's salted or rancid or bitter, whatever it is, the water is ruined to the extent that a dog cannot drink it. Says the Mechaber, such water, psulim l'netilas yadayim. These types of water are pasul for netilas yadayim. You cannot wash netilas yadayim for a suda with such water. Afapi sheksherim l'mei mikvah l'tfila. Even though these types of water would be kosher for tfilas yadayim. If you wanted to bring tahara to your hands in preparation of a suda by dunking, by immersing your hands in such water, so these waters would be kosher for tfilas yadayim, but they're not kosher for netilas yadayim. And we're going to have to understand what the chilik is between netilas yadayim and tfilas yadayim, but be that as it may, that's what the Mechaber says. Let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cotton lamed ches, Mayim Meluchim, salted water. So the Mishnah Berurah now addresses the case of ocean water, naturally salty water. Mei hayam, if you have ocean water, which is salt water, im hirsichu aisan, if you boil it up, chazru lihi ru'uyin l'shtias kelef. If you use an evaporative method, so you boil out the water and you allow the water to evaporate, we know that what happens is the salt separates out from the water, and by doing that, you could turn the salt water into fresh water. So says the Chavetz Chaim, if you do that, you're now going to make the water roy l'shtilas kelev ukesherin l'netila. And in that case, it will become, once again, kosher for netilas yadayim. He brings this down from Magen Avram, Usha'ari Achreinim B'Shem Radvaz. V'litbal b'soichai, and to use salt water or me'ayam for tfilas yadayim, mutter, that's always mutter. U'kamay b'chol mayim meluchin, that's the case by any salt water. You're always allowed to use salt water for tfilas yadayim. Ois cotton lamed tes, the Mechaber is giving us a case here where the water is salted or rancid or bitter to the extent that even a dog cannot drink it. Says the Mishnah Berurah cut lamites, she'ena kelev. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what's the foundation of this halacha? Explains the Chavetz Chaim, to kaven shem sruchim kol kach, since this water is rancid and ruined to such an extent that even a dog can no longer drink this water, it no longer has taras mayim. This is no longer considered to be mayim. And for the tilas yadayim, you need mayim. This isn't mayim. Upsalur rabbanon l'netilas yadayim. And the chachamim rendered such water pasul for the tilas yadayim. Ois cut mem. Now, the Mechaber gave us an interesting chilek. The Mechaber said that these types of water are pasul for the tilas yadayim, but they're kosher l'tvilas yadayim. In the words of the Mechaber, Alfa pishik sherim lemei mikva litvila. Even though salt water, rancid water, bitter water, you could fill up a mikvah with such water, and it's kosher for tvilas haguf. You could go be tovel in a mikvah that's filled with salt water. Nothing wrong with a salt water mikvah, and you could use it for tvilas yadayim. You could bring tahara to your hands. You could wash the tvilas yadayim for a suda by immersing your hands in such water. So for that, it would be kosher. But for the tilas yadayim from a keli, for that, it's not kosher. Says the Mishnah is cut mem. You could use salt water or rancid water or bitter water for a mikveh to bring tahara to your body, and certainly you could use it for tfilas yadayim. The loyadif b'tfila, the halach of tfilas yadayim is not any more chamor than the halach of tfilas haguf. If salt water is kosher for tfilas haguf, it's certainly kosher for tfilas yadayim. Now, the Mishnah Berurah does not explain to us over here why this chilek exists. Why is it that salt water is kosher for tfilas yadayim, but it's not kosher for the tilas yadayim from a keli? It really doesn't give us an explanation for that. So one thing that I saw brought down was that the how should I say this? The mechanics of the tahara that comes to your hands are different between the tilas yadayim and tfilas yadayim. It's a different set of mechanics. Tfilas yadayim is mikvah, mayon. When you bring tahara to your hands through immersion, you're using the mechanics of mikvah. Now, when you have salt water, if you have 40 sa, if you have arbaim sa, that's the minimum share for a mikvah. If you have arbaim sa of salt water, that is considered mei mikvah. That's considered a mikvah. 40 sa of salt water does make a mikvah. And a mikvah brings about tahara. And therefore it's kosher for tfilas haguf, and it's certainly kosher for tfilas yadayim. But when you do netila from a keli, you're not using the mechanics of mikvah. You're using the mechanics of netilas yadayim that requires a mayim. It's not mikvah, it's mayim. This is no longer mayim. Salt water that's already salted to the extent that a dog can't drink it, or rancid water that a dog can't drink, like the Mishnah Berurah told us, it's not mayim. It doesn't have a din mayim. Apparently, you could have a din mikvah without having a din mayim. That's what some shittas bring down. There's a Magen Avram. The Magen Avram is more complex. The Magen Avram seems to say that, let me remember, one second, I saw the Magen Avram, and now it just came out of my head. One second. Magen Avram. Okay, the Magen Avram's chilek escaped me for the moment, but it was a much more complicated chilek. But in any case, the Kavetz Chaim, the Mefarshim here on the page, don't explain the chilek between netila and tefillah in this regard. Okay, now let's go weiter in the Mechaber. So, the first halakha over here in the Mechaber was water that's salted or rancid or bitter to the extent that a dog can't drink it. And what the Mechaber said is, such water is possible from the tilas yadayim, but it's kosher for tfilas yadayim. Now continues the Mechaber 4 lines off the bottom, in the middle of the line. V'imheim achurim. If the water is dirty, machmas tit shenis arev bahem, because of sediment, sand, dirt that's mixed in with the water. So then says the Mechaber, im hakelev yakal lishtois mehem. If the water is still liquid, it's still thin to the extent that a dog can drink it, kesherim, then that water is kosher, bein lenetilas yadayim, bein lemikvah. You could use it for the tilas yadayim from a keli, and you could use it for tfilas yadayim for immersion. But if the water is already mud, if it's no longer water with sediment mixed in, but now it's become thick, so now it's already becoming muddy. If it's muddy to the extent that a dog cannot drink it, I skip. Yeah. If a dog can no longer drink it, psulim lishnehem. In that case, it becomes puzzle both for tfilas yadayim and for netilas yadayim. Now, okay, first let's see the Mishnah Berurah over here. So again, the halakha that the Mechaber is saying is, the Mechaber is separating this halakha from the first halakha of Siftes. The first halakha of Siftes was you have water, but the water is salty, or the water is rancid, or the water is bitter. So in that case, we have a halakha. If it's not roy l'shtias kelev, you can't use it for the tilas yadayim, but you could use it for tfilas yadayim. For tfilas yadayim, it's okay. Now the second halakha of Siftes, we're already talking about something that might not be water anymore. In the first halakha of Siftes, we said that it's water, but if it's bitter, if it's rancid, to the extent that a dog can't drink it, so then in the words of the Chavetz Chaim, it loses toiras mayim. Halachically, it doesn't have the same power as water. It doesn't have toiras mayim, and therefore it's possible for the tilas yadayim. But in the second halakha of Siftes, we have a different problem. In the second halakha of Siftes, if the water becomes muddy to the extent that it's so thick that a dog can no longer drink it, forget toiras mayim. It's not mayim. We don't have to get so abstract that it's mayim, but it doesn't have toiras mayim. No, if it's mud, it's not water. And if it's not water, you can't use it not for netila and not for a mikveh. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Ice cotton mem aleph. If the water is muddied, but a dog can still drink it, tahainu, this means, says the Chavetz Chaim, she'ein av kol kach. It's not so thick. It's still water. It has dirt mixed into it. Then it's still kosher for the tilas yadayim. Now, says the Mishnah Berurah, you might think that there's a different problem. We spoke earlier about the problem of shinoi mare, when water looks different, when the appearance of the water has changed. Sometimes we passel the water for the tilas yadayim because of shinoi mare. Says the Chavetz Chaim, well, how about muddy water? Muddy water has a shinoi mare. Says the Mishnah Berurah, that's not a problem. Why? The derech hamayim kenhu. Because that is the normal derech of water. Go to a lake, go to a stream, go to a river. Very often the water has sediment in it, and the water is not clear. When you go to a body of water that's crystal clear, you look at it and you go, wow, that's such beautiful crystal clear water. But water isn't always that way. So it's a natural condition of water to be cloudy due to sediments. So we're not going to passel the water because of Shina Mara. The Chanal by Gimel in Mishnah Berurah, we've seen this earlier in the Siman in Ois Kat Gimel. Okay, now we go to Sif Yud, 2 lines off the bottom here, and then Gimel Amud Beis. Very interesting halacha. Noitlen la yadayim, you could wash the tilas yadayim, b'chol davar shetchilosai min amayim, using anything that originates from water. This is fascinating. You would think that for the tilas yadayim, the most basic ingredient is that you need to have water. Says the Mechaber, no. As long as it's something that's tchilosai min hamayim, something that originates from water, is considered water in the context of the Tilas Yadayim. What does this mean? Says the Mechaber, Kigoin, for example, Yavchushim. What are Yavchushim? Says the Ramah, the parentheses, Pirish, Tailoyim Adumim, red worms, Oishuman dog, or the fats of fish. You melt them down into a liquid, you can use them for the Tilas Yadayim. Says the Ramah, Venira, it would seem, Tafki im Riskon. This is only true if you grind them up to the point where you liquefy them. So, this doesn't sound very appetizing, but if you have a cup full of worms that you got from the water, you can't pour worms over your hand and wash the Tilas Yadayim with worms because it has to be a liquid. But im Riskon, if somehow you grind up the worms until you liquefy them, then you can use them for the Tilas Yadayim. Because since it's tchilosai min hamayim, the Mishnah Berurah is going to tell us that these are worms that somehow come from the water. I don't know exactly what that means scientifically, but they're worms that originate from the water. The Ramah says you have to grind them up to water because we're going to see later, hopefully today, if my voice holds out, that even snow, where we say that you can use snow for the Tilas Yadayim, it doesn't mean you fill up a cup of snow and pour snow over your hand. You have to liquefy the snow. You have to chop the snow up so that it could pour, and it's a liquid that you're pouring onto your hands. So Ramah says, you're talking about using yavchushim, you're talking about using worms, you're talking about using fish fats. It has to be liquefied. Says the Mishnah Berurah cut mem gimel. What does the Mechaber mean when he's talking about something that originates from the water? What the Mechaber wants to say is it originates. The word shetchilas priyasai is bereshis bara. Shetchilas priyasai, the beginning of its creation, is from the water. Somehow he's saying that these worms come from the water. Red worms, they come into being from the water. Now you'll ask me again, change of appearance. The worms certainly don't look like water. Doesn't matter. That's the way it is. These worms, that's the way they exist. Their existence is that way, and yet they're considered mayim because tchilas priyasai ben mayim, because they originate from water, so they have a din of water. The Ramah said in Riskon, this only works if you grind them up. The Magen Avraham says that when it comes to Yavchushim are even more chomer than snow. We're going to see that by snow, there's a difference between the Tilas Yadayim and Tfilas Yadayim. For the Tilas Yadayim from a keli with snow, you have to chop the snow up and liquefy it. But for Tfilas Yadayim, we're going to see, certainly b'shas chak, you can immerse your hands in the snow. Says the Magen Avraham, when we're dealing with worms, Tfilas Yadayim doesn't work with worms either, unless you grind them up. After B'sheling Mutter B'tfila B'saychan B'shas Chak, immersion in snow does work B'shas Chak, but immersion in worms does not. Ukidl Kamei B'sif Yud Beis B'Mishnah Berurah Ayin Sham, like we're going to see in Sif Yud Beis in the Mishnah Berurah Ayin Sham. Okay, I'm going to try to push on a little bit more. Okay. Bottom line on Nun Gimel Abed Beis Sif Yud Aleph. Mayim sheyesh loy safik im nasa behem malacha olav. We saw earlier in this Siman that one of the things that renders water puzzle for the Tilas Yadayim is mayim shenasa behem malacha. If you have water that you did work with, so trying to remember what was some of the classical cases. Okay, you soaked bread in water. So that's, you used the water to accomplish a task. You used water to wash dishes. So you used the water to accomplish a task. That water is now possible for the Tilas Yadayim. Why? Because it gets a din of Mayim Shvuchim. What's Mayim Shvuchim? Mayim Shvuchim means it's wastewater, and you cannot use wastewater for the Tilas Yadayim. Bear with me 1 second, please. Okay. You can't use wastewater for the Tilas Yadayim. So now, says the Mechaber like this. Mayim sheyesh lo safek im nase behem malacha elav. You want to go ahead and you want to wash the Tilas Yadayim. But you have this water and you're not sure. You don't know for sure. It's possible that this water was used for malacha. Bear with me for 1 second, Rabbi Yisai. I'm stepping away from the camera for 1 second. I see that the battery on my computer is very low. I want to plug it in, otherwise we'll lose the whole share. Okay, thank you. Now we're plugged in. I don't have to worry about our battery running out on us. My voice might, but the battery won't. Okay, so again, I want to wash the Tilas Yadayim. I have water available here. Maybe there's a basin of water sitting next to the sink, and it looks clean. The water seems clean, but usually if there's a basin of water next to the sink, often at least, it means that somebody did something with the water. So maybe this is water shenasa by malacha, and it's possible for the Tilas Yadayim. But on the other hand, maybe it's not. I don't know. I have a suffix. Okay, says the Mechaber. Mayim sheyesh lo safek im nase behem malacha elav. If I have water and I have a suffix whether or not it was used for malacha, or another suffix. Now the Mishnah Berurah points out that this suffix is a different suffix. This suffix is talking about a case of b'di'evet. It's post facto. I washed Tilas Yadayim. I had a keli. Maybe I was out in the park and I don't have water available, but I found in my car an open bottle of water that had some water in it, and I want to wash to eat my tuna fish sandwich. So I take the bottle, I open it up, and I wash the Tilas Yadayim. But then after I wash the Tilas Yadayim, I say to myself, there was a very scant amount of water in that bottle. Did I really have a revius? I don't know if I had enough water there for the Tilas Yadayim. It didn't strike me at first. I looked at the bottle, but now, after the fact, I already washed the Tilas Yadayim, but now I'm a supik, did I really have a shear or not? So that's the Mechaber's second case. I have a suffix whether or not there was really a shear of mayim here for the Tilas Yadayim. A third suffix. Imhem temeim tahirim. Or I have any other kind of suffix. The Mishnah Berurah says what this means is, I have any other kind of suffix, whether or not this water is kosher for the Tilas Yadayim or puzzle for the Tilas Yadayim. I mean, we've seen all sorts of different psulim over here, right? If the water is salty to the extent that a dog can't drink it, it's possible for the Tilas Yadayim. So I grabbed up some salt water and I washed the Tilas Yadayim with salt water. Now I'm saying to myself, that water was salty. Do I know if a dog would drink it or not? I don't have a golden retriever over here to offer him some water and find out if it's royal shtias kelev or not. I don't know. So I have a suffix. I washed the Tilas Yadayim. I have a suffix. I don't know if this was good or it wasn't. Or another case, suffix im natal yadav olav, a new suffix. I'm not sure exactly how this one happens, but I have a suffix. I'm not sure if I washed the Tilas Yadayim or I didn't wash the Tilas Yadayim. Maybe what happened was I went to go wash the Tilas Yadayim, and Then I know I got up to go to the sink to go wash. And then an emergency phone call came in, and I got on the phone. And then now it's 20 minutes. I don't know. I'm not sure if I washed the Tils Yadayim or not. In all of these cases, says the Mechaber, Tahor. In all of these cases, you're good. It's considered that you washed the Tils Yadayim, a kosher in the tila, and you could go eat. And says the Ramah, V'chol safik tahara b'yadayim tar. Anytime, brings down from the Tur, anytime you have a suffix, whether or not your hands are considered tar or not, we go lakula, and your hands have a status of being tar. Let's see some Mishnah Berurah over here. Says the Mishnah Berurah begins on the bottom of the Gimel on the base, Ice Cut and Memvav, Safik im Nasa. The Mechaber's first case was, you have water available for the Tils Yadayim, but you have a suffix, you don't know, it could be that this water was used to accomplish a task. It could be, it's Mayim Shanasa Ben Malacha. Says the Mishnah Berurah, in this particular case, Hainu Bein Shenistapik Achar Netila, this, the halacha over here is equal, whether it's a suffix post facto, if it's a suffix b'diavad, after you already washed, or before you washed. You're going to wash, and there is water sitting in a basin next to the sink. And I have a suffix. Right now, I want to go wash. I have a suffix. I don't know if this water was used to do a malacha or not. Says the Mishnah Berurah, in either case, the halacha of the Mechaber applies. You could use this water for the Tils Yadayim, even though you have a suffix. Certainly, if the suffix only came up after you washed, so it's b'diavad, you washed, and then somebody told you, it could be that water is Mayim Shenasa Ben Malacha, I have a suffix. Either case, you could use the water for the Tils Yadayim. If you don't have other water. But the second case of the Mechaber was, where I have a suffix, I don't know if I have enough water. I don't know if I have the sheer mayim for the Tils Yadayim. In that case, says the Mishnah Berurah, that's different than the first case. This halacha of the Mechaber, that if you have a suffix, whether or not there's a sheer, you could use that water, that's only post facto. That's only you already washed. And now, you're mesupik, I don't know if I really had enough water, you're good. You could go ahead and you could eat. But if it's not post facto, if it's lechatchila, you want to go wash and you're looking at the bottle and you don't know if you have a shear, then you can't use it for the Tils Yadayim, because that's not called a suffix. You see, in the first case, I went there and I washed. Now I'm a suffix. This suffix, there's no way to be mevarer it. There's no way anymore to be mevarer to clarify whether or not you had a shear. The water is gone. You already used it for the Tils Yadayim. It's gone. So there's no way to be mevarer the suffix. So you have a suffix. You have no way to be mevarer the suffix. So halacha is you go l'kula. And we said that the Tils Yadayim was good. But if you're going to wash now and you're looking at the bottle and you don't know if there's a shear or not, go figure out how to measure it. This is something that you could be mevarer. You could be mevarer if there's a revius here or not. You don't know how to be mevarer. That doesn't make a suffix. So says the Mishnah Berurah inside, but if you didn't wash yet, we're not going to say, you could go l'kula, and you could use this water even though you don't know if there's a shear. Because the fact that you don't know how to clarify whether or not there's a proper shear, you don't know. Maybe you don't even know what the shear is. Your ignorance does not go ahead and create a suffix that we're going to be makel on. That's a choshev suffix. The suffix b'machlekes hapaiskim. How about another kind of suffix? A suffix where there's a machlekes hapaiskim. I don't know which way we paskin. Harei ukeshar suffix. That is considered a suffix. The kevin shelo yichriu ba. If nobody's machriya between the paiskim, harei suffix b'mos d'rabanan like tida lahakel. Another case that the Mechaber said was, you're mesupik whether the water is tamei or tahar. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what does that mean? Tamei or tahar? Pirish. Doesn't mean literally you have water and you're mesupik if it's tamei, like it came into contact with a mace or a sheretz, or it's tar. It doesn't mean that. Pirish. Mayim psulim ksherim. What it means is we don't know if this is water that's kosher for the tilas yadayim or water that's possible for the tilas yadayim. So we have water, it's salty, but we don't know if this is salty to the extent that it's not royal l'shtiyas kelev or not. In all of these cases, tahar. The halacha is that we're mekel, and we say that it's a good netilas yadayim, and the water is tahar for the netilas yadayim. V'atam, the reason is that the netilas d'Rabbanan, because this netilas yadayim is a din d'Rabbanan. V'lo yachmiru b'sveika, savik d'Rabbanan lekula. V'afilu hayu kol sveikas yakad ksherin. Even if we would have a bunch of sveikas together. So we have a suffix, we don't know if this water was water that was nasa l'malacha. Maybe malacha was done with this water. We also have another suffix, we don't know if there's a shear. So now you have two reasons to passel the water. Maybe malacha was done with this water, and maybe you don't have a shear. Doesn't matter. Even though you're piling up the sveikas, it doesn't matter, we still go l'kula. The Ramah said, v'chol suffix tahara. Any suffix that you would have, we go l'kula. If you have a suffix whether or not this keli is considered an intact keli, is a suffix. Okay, we're going to have to stop over here. So we're going to pick up next time Yitz Hashem on the third line down on the Dalet Amud Aleph, right by the Mishnah Berurah Ois Katan Nun Aleph. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. The schus of limud HaTorah should be megan against Klal Yisrael. We need to remember, with what's going on in Eretz Yisrael, people fall, myself included, fall into conversations about what the IDF can do, what the IDF can't do, what the politicians should do, what the politicians should not do. We need to remember that all of the guns and the planes and the tanks of the IDF are all ultimately Klei Esav. Esav lives by the sword. That was Yaakov Avinu's statement to Esav. Al charbecha sechya, you live by the sword. Right? Kol Yaakov hayodayim yedei Esav. Klei Zayin are the kelim of Esav. The kelim of Yaakov are kol, davening, tefillah. That's the ultimate Klei Zayin of Klal Yisrael. Ultimately is tefillah. It's the kol of Torah in the Beis Medrash. It's the kol of tefillah in the Beis HaKnesses. I don't mean for a moment to denigrate or lessen the importance of what the soldiers on the ground are doing, and I'm aspiring constantly for their safety. They should be safe and they should be protected. Not a drop of Yiddish blood should be spilled. So we're constantly mispal for them. And I don't denigrate for a second what they do, but at the same time we have to remember that by us, Eile barechev ve'eile basusim. There are those, the Einam Yehudim, they fight barechev u'basusim. Eile barechev ve'eile basusim. Va'anachnu b'shem Hashem Elokeinu nazkir. Our mulchama is through tefillah. It's through Torah, through tefillah, through amunah, through betachin. So let's let them do what they do. Let's the boots on the ground. They'll do what they'll do. We need to say Tillim. We need to be mispal. We need to cry out in tefillah. We need to make kabbalas of tshuva. We need to make kabbalas of doing good things. We need to gather up schusim. Adarabba, we need to pile up schusim on behalf of those whose boots are on the ground. We need to pile up schusim on their behalf to help them do what it is that they're doing, to give them cover, to give them ear support. We need to give them support, min hashamayim. That's the real ear support. That's what we need to do. We should all be mispal. We hope that the schus of Torah should be megan, should protect them. The Rebbe Hashem karafayin. The Rebbe Hashem should show us nisim gluyim. The Rebbe Hashem should show us that the Yeshua comes min hashamayim. The Rebbe Hashem should turn even those that are kaifrim, and those that don't see it, those that don't have eyes to see. The Rebbe Hashem should open up their eyes. That the whole world should be zeichet to see it. Be well.